Welcome to the series of level design and world building and game design. This is an introductory class, and this first one is just to get you where you can get the installer or the game launcher going for Epic Game Installer, and then when you're launching, how to navigate through to pull up the right version of Unreal Engine, how to look up your library, pull up projects, go to the marketplace, which samples are worth looking at, and there's a lot going on here. So there's two library links, which is really confusing at first. So you have a library here, which is, I think, their attempt to compete with Steam. So you have some games. They do give out some free games each month, which is pretty cool. And there are several games that you can also mod. So the Ark Survival, if you have a terabyte of space laying around, it's pretty awesome, and you can mod it out. I think there's a Conan game, but yeah, you see I have some favorites here. Limbo, the original VR game that was decent, Robo Recall. You have Twin Motion and the VR Funhouse. So you see there's quite a few things there that you could play around with. But in general, if you go to the engine here, this will take you back within the engine. There's the library within the engine, not the actual Epic Games Store library. So this left toolbar supersedes the upper toolbar. So they keep changing this and modifying it. So that's why I'm updating this. So you want to go to your library, and you want to go to the plus sign here, and you want to install whichever version you need with your current project. So right now I have 5.2. I'm skipping the preview for now, even though it has some amazing features. But for any official teaching, I always wait till it's actually full release. And I had to update the 5.0, so there's a little update option in here. And so right now we have 5.2. So if you have a project out here, I have Stacklebot 5.0. That's one of the main projects we'll use. We also have the Unreal Learning Kit, which does the Hour of Code, which is also with 5.0. And there's several other really good starter projects for you to play with. The Lyra starter game is amazing. The content examples, blueprints and gameplay lecture series, the fundamentals classes with fundamentals going through all the different parts, like little demo portions of the editor and within the engine. And so if I were to double click on this, I want to open it with 5.2. You'll see here, open. If I open it, it's going to automatically launch 5.0 because it hasn't been updated before. So let's go ahead and launch 5.2. Now, when it launches, you may get a snag around 40%. That's if it's already opening the project that has a lot of graphics going on in there. So I'm going to open up and upgrade the projects for this. So let's start with the Unreal Learning Kit. And I'm going to open that up. And so it's going to ask me this. It's going to tell me it's made with a different version of the Unreal Engine. Opening it with this version may prevent it from opening with the original editor. So if we open it with 5.2 and we save it, we're not going to be able to open it with 5.0. So rather than making a whole copy of this, if you want to keep it and still use 5.0, if you're working on a project that's actually going to ship or something like that, you usually do version lock, and you don't upgrade at all. So for this one though, we just go convert in place, and I'm okay if I have to. These are free projects that are really easy to download and easy to find. So there it goes. So it's going to go to 40 something, 45%. That's usually where it's compiling all the shaders. You'll see right there it says it's at 5,000 shaders that need compiling. So let's wait a moment and see how long this takes. So you can see here as it's loading, it's been about 5 minutes already. It's still at 45%. It went from 5,000 something shaders down to 2,500. You see my CPU is totally maxed out. So be careful. Don't do anything while you're waiting for your project to open. Just be patient, especially the first time. You can see the memory here. I have a 64 gigs of RAM, and I'm running on a laptop with SSD. So hopefully you have a solid state drive. I am hooked into the Ethernet, so don't forget when you're working with these intense applications on your laptop, you want to plug in your power and get an Ethernet cable if possible. And I would also suggest getting another monitor so you can run full resolution off of your, if you do have a graphics card, hopefully in your laptop. And it says here the GPU graphics for the UHD, and then I have the NVIDIA GPU graphics. So you see that's a 8 gigabyte graphics card. That's the GeForce RTX. I believe it's a 3070 card. So just giving you an idea of the readout here, and the patience that you need to have. So I'm guessing it's going to take between 10 and 15 minutes. Looks like it's wrapping up. So it's gone through the shaders. So once it hits that 45% mark and renders all the shaders, you should get to the actual editor opening up. So you'll see it's still catching up on all the shaders. So you have, fairly large world here. It's a lightweight project. I love the Hour of Code project. They did a good job with it. And there's all of the, I'm gonna get a bunch of errors coming in here. I haven't opened it on this computer in a long time, so I'm just gonna dismiss all those. I could look these up one by one, open up the project settings, and kind of see what's what in here. But for right now, I'm not gonna worry about this stuff. And no, not right now. Okay, so looks like it's moving pretty well. So there's a couple things to be aware of. If you're on an older computer, the first thing I would do is go up here and turn off real time, Control R. So real time, you'll see there's little specks going here in dust motes. If there's any animations on the grass moving, or I think there's some streams in the air, anything that's running real time like you would in a game, that's going to be running live in the background the whole time. So turn that off. And that way nothing's going to be running in the background. Then go right up to the very top of your settings. It's a slight difference between Unreal 4 and 5, just a little bit of UI that you get used to really quick if you're watching older tutorials. And go to Engine Scalability, and I drop mine down to medium already for the class. So if I turn mine up to, say, Epic or Cinematic, you'll see the shadows, all the soft shadows are going to appear. You'll get in here closer to the metals, and you'll see reflections. If we go back up here and turn it on to Cinematic, and it might think for a minute, and there you go. And so while it's nice to look at, and there we go, so there's some shiny specularity or metalness and reflection maps, reflectivity, and there we go, there's a really reflective surface there. But you just don't need it when you're getting started. You can look at it for a bit, but if your computer's at all iffy running the engine, just go in here and just drop it down to medium, or even to low if you're running on a really old system. So like I said, I'm running on a laptop right now, so you see a little bit still working on medium. But if you're on a really old laptop that's not a gamer, doesn't have a 3000 series or higher video card, then you're gonna want to drop it down to low. So that's opening up the project. So you can open up multiple projects. So I'm going to go to the StackoBot. I have a StackoBot and a StackoBot backup. So I'm going to launch, again, Unreal Engine 5.2. And my CPU's gone back to normal somewhat. It's about 20%. My memory's holding pretty steady at 21. I have 3 monitors running. I have the laptop monitor and then 2 other external monitors hooked up to it, running Open Broadcast Studio, so the OBS is running. And so we'll see if this is going to launch. Now, be patient. When you click launch, you might be prone to hitting it again a couple times, but most likely it is, there it goes. It's going to open up multiple versions, so it just takes it a minute or two to think about it. So once I open up again 5.2, but when I launch it from here, which is click on the engine, and then you have the launch button right here. So I want to grab the StackoBot project, and same thing as before. I'm going to open this up and go to more options and convert to in place. So that's going to upgrade all of the project files to 5.21. Now, I'm certain there are instances where upscaling or doing upversion from a project to a new version of Unreal could cause errors for some of these test and example templates and projects. But so far, so good. I have not experienced anything yet. I know there's maybe some UMG or some UI stuff that's different. There's definitely some AI stuff. The lighting, you have Lumen and Nanite in 5 and higher. But it's not really going to hurt too much for the simple Hour of Code, the Unreal Learning Kit. Definitely out for the fundamentals classes, for the fundamentals, implementing level design, the Lyra starter game. It should be a 5.0 or higher anyway, same with Stacklebot. So going from 5.0 to 5.1, 5.2, and then 5.3 is in preview mode still. So far, so good. You can always look up the documentation online to see if anything could pop up there. So same thing here. So this one's stopping at 45%, compiling 4,500 shaders, so just about the same amount. And the last one took 13 minutes, so I can Alt-Tab over to this one. And since I have turned off real-time, and I've put my scalability settings down to medium, and here's your material quality, preview render level. There's all the shader models. You can look these up on your own if you want to play around with these. But make sure you kind of know what you're doing if you're going to play around too much. But I should be able to go in here and hit the play button. I also do a right-click play from here quite often whenever I'm testing on a level, and give it a second to think. There we go. And I'm just playing right into the browser here. And spacebar to jump, spacebar twice to glide. So there it goes, which is pretty nice. And the main thing, and I'll hit spacebar again to drop back down. The main thing to see with this level, I'm going to escape out of there, is that it has all the basic pieces you want to learn about and explore when you're first learning game design and level design and getting into the editor. So you have your main player character with a set of animations. Your core animations are typically your fly, your standing idle, a crouch, a run, a jump, a hit back reaction, a fall, a leap. If you have flying, you have flying. If you have swimming, you might have some swimming animations. This looks like it's the middle of a run animation. I could turn some of these on and go back to real time for just a minute and see if any of these are running yet. And we'll do a play again. And there we go. And they are indeed playing. So yeah, there you go. So that's a jump. There's jump up, jump down. There's the run. There's the walk. And there's the crouch walk. So this is your set of core animations you would typically want to design for your game. Over here you have your regular props, usually a spawn point disk of some kind. So a static mesh platform. And if you have buttons on there, if you're going to activate switches, these pieces here are player buttons. So and each of these have a BP next to them. That's for blueprint. And then up here you have the puzzle cubes. So if you need to take a piece and place it somewhere else, so basic puzzle. You have the puzzle sphere, which I believe have the dynamic physics turned on, so they roll as opposed to a box or stackable. So the old joke when I first started doing this 20 years ago, we used a mod with the Hammer editor, the Half-Life editor, a lot, and so it was all about crates and barrels, right? Which is an old store too. So there's lots of barrels and crates in most 3D environments, and so you also have pickups. So you have power pickups, and you'll typically want to have some sort of power up or pickup in your game. So the basic one that runs you through this is the boost. You have a collectible pickup, that's your coin. So you have something that has a countable reader, and then you have your modular kits for almost any basic environment. So you'll almost always have a modular wall piece, and we have the grid over here that should be snapped to the grid, so we could take a look at those in more depth. We have a diagonal piece that's the same width, so it's a triangle or half of a cube here. We have a wall piece with a doorway open and a wall piece with a window opening. We have a double or triple wide wall piece that could be a teleporter or a wider opening. You have a staircase up, double wide staircase. You have a roof piece that is tileable the same width as the wall. You have a roof piece that turns the corner inward and a roof piece that turns the corner outward. With this basic model kit set, you can really load it in, and with AI modeling becoming popular and procedural techniques, you're really going to have a lot more flexibility for how these procedural tools will take this model kit. And there's blueprints you can write, and there's ways you can code this to create cities dynamically on the fly. For your organic kit, you'll usually want to have some kind of outdoor rock set. So you have your macro pieces or your biggest rock pieces. That could be your mountains and hills and things like that. You'll have your large and medium-sized rock pieces. So you can see it has boulders over here. Anything you click in the editor, you can just hit F on the keyboard. That'll bring up the object. Right now, I'm also currently viewing the physics on these objects, so you can actually see the collision bounding boxes, which is really helpful when you're first getting started. And over here for the foliage, you might have some grasses and flowers, and usually that would extend into bushes and trees. So you have your organic kit, basically large, medium, small. You have your organic kit, grasses, bushes, trees, large, medium, and small. Each would have modular pieces as well. So your tree might have a trunk, it's a set of branches, and then leaves and things like that. And then you have your visual particle effects, a little bit something moving in the world. So just having some sort of atmosphere. So you always want to have a distance fog that gives you your atmospheric perspective, which is how the human eye senses depth in most of the world. You'll also have a light source that usually, if you're in the exterior, you have a dominant directional light, which would represent the sun or the moon. And if there's a breeze blowing, you may have some slight animations on the grass or trees, leaves and branches and things like that. So this is an excellent set of parts to be able to build a level. You also have these other platforming pieces here that are static brush boxes that we can get into, which is kind of going away anymore, but we still use them. And platforms here that can be broken up and used for chaos physics. So we have real-time physics to shatter and break pieces up, which is having real-time physics is another amazingly fun element. So that's a bit of a intro for the Hour of Code level. And I'm still stuck at 45% at 2000, so about halfway through the shader. So again, that's right on the mark there, between 12 and 15 minutes to download that. We also have the implementing level design piece and the Lyra starter games, and the content examples. So I'm with the computer I have that's currently fairly strong, so I have a good 62 gigs of RAM. It's a lot. So it can run multiple apps simultaneously. The CPU is maxed out, so maybe I shouldn't do a third one while this one's sloping. But once I get the second editor open, I'm usually okay running a third editor. And what I can do is you can grab a piece from here and you can right click and you can go in here and you can copy and paste the object. You can also select where the object is down here in your project settings, and you can migrate. And so you could take things from this. You could take, like, if you like this rock or this architectural building kit, you can take these and you can migrate them over into the StackObot project. So that's another thing to remember. So when you're doing your early game design, get your list together. Your asset list is kind of provided here for you. I'll provide an extra asset list for you with more detail, and we'll take a look at the documentation that goes along with this. And if you're totally new, just type in Unreal Engine, download Epic Game Launcher, and you should be able to figure this out on your own. But a lot of people ask, well, how do I download it? Well, some questions are Google questions. You could just Google that one. But here's the download Unreal Engine for free. And so download the launcher first, and then open the launcher, and then you'll install it like we already did for that. And it'll run you through a lot of marketing and promotional stuff, but for the most part, you'll want to make an account, use whichever email you want, and there's already downloading that one. And once you've done that, you should then have both the launcher and the game engine available. The other parts you'll want to look at when you go through the marketplace. So if I'm in here and I'm looking at assets, inside the marketplace, you'll find a lot of free stuff. So there's free stuff that's launched every month. You always want to grab those. And then there's stuff that's permanently free, and there's stuff that comes and goes. So right now we have the month of September, free for the month. Here it is, Quest Editor plugin. Ooh, Architectural Visualization, Volume 3. The Safe House. Basic multiplayer melee combat system is free. That sounds really handy because we always want to have melee, and the melee is not really built into the third-person template. And the Palisol. So I'm going to grab each of these. So add to cart for all 5 of them. And here's the other tricky part of the interface. So after you put that into your cart, it actually it takes you outside to the browser version of the app. So I have the other parts in here, the Electric Dreams environment, the crop out sample project. So I'm going to go ahead and check these out. And usually then it's going to launch a browser. So then I'm in the Epic's game store through the browser and through yet another interface. So if I place the order, let's see which one this is. There we go. It's been confirmed. Thank you. Oh, and I guess it didn't. Okay, well, I take that back then. But yeah, a lot of these projects, if you want to look at in more detail, it'll launch. You'll actually go to the page outside of this launcher, and that'll give you the full amount of information in there. Under samples, there's some new samples out there. So the Electric Dreams environment's huge. The MetaHumans, if you have the space and you want to get into doing real-time humans that are, I think, finally just barely past the uncanny valley. You'll want to get content examples. The city samples, really huge. But the content example is a really must-have for starters, because you go through all the different content and see how it's organized. And anytime you see a book here, that means there's documentation available. They're going into film and pre-visualization and the automotive industry, broadcast, of course, simple broadcast example, and virtual studios. Here's the Lyra. Here's the basic game. So the Crop Out is a new sample project. It's a RTS top-down, very similar to, brings back my memories working with the Zynga team on Farmville 2 when it went 3D. That was pretty fun, although they used Unity Engine at the time. Here's the Lyra starter game. This has a lot of the advanced features that you'll want to do for the abilities and multiplayer. Stackobot is the new 5.0 basic starter showcase level. The Valley of the Ancients was the first big one that they launched with 5.0 that had the giant boss and showing off the Nanite and Lumen. A lot of these other stylized render, a lot of these older ones are kind of past their useful shelf life. However, the modular parts in there might still be handy. They haven't really done a good 2D template yet. The stick figure one is, I think when they very first launched it, it's that old. It's really old. Chaos Destruction, they have better ones now. On the AR and VR, they're just getting better with 5.1. They finally had actual VR template, thank goodness. So that's where the samples are. I skipped the twin motion for now, at least for gaming and animation, and it's taken a minute to download the marketplace for some reason. I think it's just I'm maxing out my computer and I have to be really, really careful that I don't crash things. And yeah, this is just getting, 95%. There it goes. So that's now loading, and same thing as with the other project. You'll see a lot of errors coming up. You see it's all checkerboard at first. That means it's loading in all those shaders, and it's letting us if we have to use shader model 6 in order to show off the nanite settings. So that again is done through the project settings. And just let that think for a minute. There it goes. So the big difference between this project and the Hour of Code project is the landscape and the foliage on the landscape. So this is a nice starter level. It's got the clouds, it's got the floating, avatar. Of course, we all love floating Sky City rocks. And so it's a nice kind of starter 3D platformer. So you can really have a lot of dimensionality, and it has a good fog. It's low on the graphics power too. So they did like a nice simple graphics quality with the character. However, if you go over to Stackobot project, it's still loading in. You'll see you have all these little rocks and all these little blades of grass. So this is a little bit more modern. So it has all the blades of grass. See, they're cards. So they're just billboard cards, flat planes with the alpha cutouts for all the strands. Not all the strands, but a lot of them. You can see there's still some strands here. And we'll cover, if you go over to my 3D modeling series, we'll cover plants and bushes and trees. And there in more detail how to make them. But these are loading in, and for all these little itty bitty things to load and to bring in the terrain, the landscape, which has the ability to tessellate and sculpt and paint all of this groundwork on there, that's really pushing an old computer. So that's the difference between the two. So the Hour of Code is where I send all the new folks that have questionable computers that are just going to barely make it through the class. And then if you have a good gaming, game-ready computer that's a little bit higher than the minimum requirements, go ahead and take in the Stackobot project. And for both of these, I did the save in place. What I do is I'll do a save all, usually rather quickly while it's still loading everything. So I'll go back to both of these and just go save all. And that way, hopefully when you close this down and reopen it, it's going to go a lot faster. So that's my suggestion. I would, after you get these open, I know you're excited probably to get started in here, but I would just save everything and close them down and restart your computer and reload these projects one at a time, because you're going to get crashes most likely. And here you can see some of the movement in the foliage. So it's only going to move when I move right now because I have the game view turned off. So we'll go back up here and turn on real time, Control R for real time view. And now you'll see there's a nice little kind of breathing, kind of that breath of fresh air, the little movement that we need to see to, sell the scene as being alive and real. And you'll see if you added that with some of the environmental motes that you saw with the Out of Code project, then those things really go together. And then of course, when you add sound to it, then that's going to kind of sell the scene as kind of being believable as a lived in or a real environment, or at least a real fantasy environment. So that's it for now. We'll come back and take a little bit of a more look at the features and how to bring in some of the other project files from some of the other learning pathways, and look at some documentation and planning, and see how you can plan this out so that you can make a level really quickly.